So this is a quick tutorial to demonstrate how to do an explosion. So for this project, I'm going to go in to some video that I made just to demonstrate this. So I have in my explosion these two MOV files. So I'm going to just import them into my project, and let's see if they're at 180 by 720, and for this project that's fine. So I'm just going to bring these two in here, explosion 1 and explosion 2. So explosion 1 is reacting to an explosion, and sorry, that's explosion 1, and explosion 2 is handing over a chalk duster. Now I need a few more frames, so I'm going to go into my composition settings and take it up to 10 seconds. 10 seconds, and then we'll just arrange the sequence so that we start with that, and then there's a whole bunch of frames where we're just standing there doing nothing. So I'm going to trim this first shot to just the point where I take that back, and then we want the reaction to the explosion. Let me just turn this one on again. The reaction to the explosion, now we crouch down, we don't want the crouching down, we want it really from there. So if we cut those two together, what does that look like? Boom. Alright, so that's the first thing, is to get the video prepared together. What we don't want to see in a video is in an explosion is any of these crouching down frames. We need to do that to react, but we really want the frames from here on. So we can just cut those frames out. Now, an explosion really happens in maybe two parts. One part is the flash, and then a smoke kind of to follow it. So let's start with the flash. I'm going to put in a new layer. I'll make it a solid layer, and I'm going to go for a white, or maybe something just a little bit off-white, maybe a little bit of red or something, but mostly it's a white. And on my solid layer, I'm going to use the star tool. I'm going to draw a star from the center like this. I'm also going to make it a little bit irregular so that it doesn't look just like a star. So the trick with this explosion stars is to make it look as though the center of every point goes back to the same center point. So it all kind of pushes back to this same point, and then it'll look fine. So you can also draw your star with the pen tool, is also fine. So I'm going to now move this star to where the explosion happens, and probably just shrink it down. Now the flash happens quickly. It really, you know, 5 frames to 10 frames is all we would want to see it on stage. So if we've got a position keyframe on this frame, and what's that? That's 5 frames to there. Let's try to there to start with. So here we'll just bang. Maybe just go in a little closer here. So there's the flash from there, boom, to there. How fast is that to actually watch it? And really we don't want the flash there after that point. So I'm going to take the flash off when we're not looking at it. So let's just have a look at that. We'll just close up the clip to that point, and boom, boom, boom. It's not bad. Now, okay, so there's a couple of things we can do to make a flash look better. One is to give it some motion blur. So, and don't forget to preview the motion blur as well, so that you can see it in the preview window. That's not bad. Another thing that often looks good is to hit the T for transparency and make it, as it gets bigger, make it go less transparent. So as it gets big, let's bring it down to, I don't know, 50%. So boom. Another thing that you can do is to make like a double or even a triple boom. So I'm just going to copy the layer and paste it, and maybe just offset it by a few frames. So now instead of a single flash, it's boom, boom. Let's just have a look at that. Okay, that's not bad for the flash. So I'm just going to save that. Explosion test, and that's kind of okay for the flash. Now for the next part of the recording, I want to use a smoke for the explosion. So I'm going to go to my project folder, and I'm going to grab this explosion called Shockwave 2. Now, I have a set of 10 of these that I've put up on BBLearn that you can choose from. They're all more or less like this. They all have, they're all a white explosion on a black background. So I'm just going to bring that into my project folder and bring it down into my comp. So what does it look like? It looks like this. Now obviously we don't want it black on white, so what we do is to set the blend mode. If we go down to this toggle switches and modes, we can go from the default normal to, well, it could be overlay. We found that was useful for our tattoo exercise, but I think for this kind of exercise, screen works the best. So now we see the explosion smoke happening over the screened image. So let's take it back. It should happen a little after the flash, not too far after, but kind of about there. And of course the center needs to be in the center of our explosion. So let's move it over to the center. Let me just grab the center here. So it's about that size. I may want to scale it. I see that it starts, it's already quite large when it starts, so I may want to scale it down a bit at the beginning and then scale it up to sort of full size at some point. So and just move it back so that it's happening after the flash. Boom, and there's the smoke. So that's yeah, that's how we would handle the smoke part of the explosion. So everything's starting to shape up. We have explosion flash and explosion smoke. It's always good if we add a sound. So I've got an explosion wave file here that I got from a free sound effects website. So I'll just bring that into my project and drop that into the mix. And let's see. Now I'm finding my video is a little bit too quick at the moment. It all sort of happens too quickly. So what I'd like to do is to try making this a bit more slow motion when we finally get to this point here. So I'm going to go to the layer time menu and do a time stretch. So I'm going to stretch it from 100 to, I don't know, 200% or maybe 300. What does this look like? So now, boom, we get thrown back in slow motion, and I'm going to probably cut off some of these frames where I sort of bounce back up. So let's see, play that in real time. Okay, so that's a time stretch, and that may or may not be something you would want to do. Let me see. Okay, there's two more things that we would do to make the explosion look good, and they are using effects. I'm going to show you two different effects, and while I'm doing that, I'm actually going to turn off the visibility of my flash and my smoke. So we're just back to the basic video now. So the last thing I want to do to my explosion is to use a couple of effects. Now I'm going to show you two effects. There are lots and lots of effects in After Effects, but I'm going to show you two that might be useful for this explosion. The first one is called the Bulge. So I'm selecting my video of the reaction to the explosion, and I'm going over to my effects and presets and just searching for bulge. Now when I hit enter, it's gone and put the bulge effect onto this video channel that I had selected here. If I didn't want it, I could just delete it, but I do want it, so let me just double click it again. So the bulge, what it does is to distort the video inside the bulge. So so we can set the bulge radius up like this, and it's like looking through a glass ball. So I'm going to set the bulge radius like up so that it's almost across the whole screen. I'm also going to set the center of the bulge more from where the center of my explosion is, and maybe even a little bigger. So and now let me just open that up. So we have the bulge, and you can see we have these keyframes here for these properties. Now the center will stay the same the whole time. I'm just going to move this across, and I probably want the bulge, I don't know, sort of maybe 10 frames of bulge. It's like a shockwave. But let's set the bulge radius down to 0 and 0 at the beginning. So it goes from 0 bulge to big bulge, and then pretty quickly after that it'll go back to 0. So what do we have? Boom, like a big shock wave. And then actually I can see the bulge coming back in. I'm not sure I like that. I think better if we make that happen quicker. So I'm just going to bring those in so that we get boom, the bulge, and then boom, it's back to normal video. So that's the bulge effect. So you can have some fun with that. I'm just going to close that one up for the moment. And by the way, if we don't want to look at, I'm happy with the bulge, but I don't want to see it. We have the FX column here. Just take it off. The bulge is still there, but we don't. Oh, we don't see it. Yeah, we're not seeing bulge there at the moment. If we want to see it again, we can make it visible like that. Okay, so I'm taking the bulge off, and I want to show you one other effect, which is called ripple. Actually, there's a few different ripple, but I'm just going to use the one that's called distort ripple. So again, with my video channel selected, my video layer selected, I click on it, and now this layer has bulge and ripple. Ripple is like a when you drop a stone into water. It's what happens across the surface of the water. So again, we'll set the center of the ripple to be over where our explosion happens. That's a little bit too far over. Not quite that far over. So about here. And we want to create a ripple. Let's see, we need to set a radius for the ripples. We need to set a wave width and a wave height. So you can play around with this and kind of see what looks good, but it's all about, you know, how a shockwave, how an explosion distorts the image. So I'm now going back to the first frame and setting the radius back to 0, which basically means no ripple. So boom, and there's this final ripple value. I kind of like quite wide and quite high. So we go boom. There's the huge shockwave, and again, let's take it back down to 0 a couple of frames later. Boom. So you might find that we can make that last a bit longer. Okay, so let's put it all back together. We've got the ripple and the bulge together. What's that look like? I could probably make that a bit neater, make those sit together a bit better, but it's not bad. Let's put the flash back in. So we'll go back to the flash layers and the shockwave layer, and let's see what it looks like. So from the beginning. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this tutorial. There are so many different properties and settings to experiment with. I hope this has given you some ideas to play with, and I look forward to seeing your very creative explosions.